Hey guys, it's Kyla. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be going through all the books that I read in June. This month I didn't read as many books as I did in May, but I read so many good books I am so excited to talk about today. So this month I read 7 books and I'm here to talk about all of those today with you in order, of course, of what I read first to what I have most recently read. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started with it. So the first book that we're going to be talking about today is one of my Kindle reads that I read this month, and that is I'll Always Be With You by Monica Murphy. This is a part of her Lancaster Prep series. I believe this is the last book of the Lancaster Prep series. At least I'm pretty sure. Like, I haven't heard anything about there being another one because there's not any other siblings left. I'm pretty sure that Carolina was the last one, but this follows Carolina Lancaster. She is a ballerina. She, I believe, has been living in Paris or like somewhere in Europe for the past like 4 to 5 years. At least that's what I understand, because this book picks up in Paris where she has been performing for the last couple months. But there she meets Weston Fontaine, something like that, and they meet and she's immediately like, okay, I don't really like you, I don't want to get to know you, I don't care for you at all. But she's with all of her friends and all her friends are like, oh, let the poor boy join us. And Weston, since the literal first time that he's ever laid eyes on her, has been like, oh my gosh, she's beautiful, I love her. Not I love her, but like, oh my gosh, I want to get to know her. And Carolina wants absolutely nothing to do with Weston, and it is the funniest thing in the entire world to me. So he kind of goes along with Carolina and all of her friends for the night out in Paris. Carolina is very mysterious to Weston, so that kind of like draws him in, and he's like, oh my gosh, I want to get to know more about you. Like, I know that you're a Lancaster because like your brother, he's like a senior or whatever, and I think he's a sophomore or a freshman. So they kind of just spend the night together in Paris, just going around the different areas of the city together, and they kind of have a little moment and you're like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so cute, I wonder what happens next. A couple chapters later, time skip. 2 years later, Carolina is being sent to the Lancaster Prep school that her family owns in, I believe, New York, and she absolutely does not want to go because she's like, what the heck, ballet is my literal life, I go to school for ballet and you're wanting me to give that up. And her parents are like, you only have to go for a year, like for your senior year, and then you can do whatever you want after you turn 18. And she's like, whatever, really upset about it. First day of being at Lancaster Prep, and who does she see? Weston. Just the way that everything happens is absolutely hilarious to me, because like, he's everywhere and she's like, oh my gosh, get away. They first get there and it's kind of almost a bully romance. Like, there were some parts where I was like, I don't know if I really like this, but I did really enjoy Weston's character. I love how patient he is. I love just how sweet he is. Not gonna lie, the first part of this book, both Weston and Carolina got on my last nerve. Like, I could not stand either of them, but as I read, they started to grow on me, and you start to see like what is really going on in both of their lives, and just like all of the family drama that they have that makes them the way that they are. And you kind of start to feel a little bit bad for them, and you're like, okay, I understand, you guys are just kids, what's going on, all this kind of stuff. And you're like, actually, you're not that bad. So that was this book. The train, every single time that I go to film, the train wants to go by. Do you hear this? Just give me a moment. I think the train is done. What was I saying about this book? I don't really remember what I was saying about this book, but either way, I gave this book a 3 stars. I first gave it a 4 stars whenever I was finished reading it. I didn't love the ending of this book. It time skipped, and whenever a book has like an ending that like time skips, really kind of annoys me, because like you know that the characters like figured out everything that was going wrong, but like you don't get to see that figuring out, you don't get to see that progression or that character development, which I love a good character development. I think we all know that. I didn't get to see that, so I didn't love it. I just gave it a 3 stars. I feel like almost all of Monica Murphy's books, I usually give it 3 stars because I'm like, okay, I vibed, it was good, but it's not memorable. I do like Monica Murphy's writing, it's just not the kind of writing that really like gets me, you know. But that was I'll Always Be With You. And then the second book that I read this month is City of Glass. This is the 3rd book of the Shadowhunter series. I don't really have much to say on this because, as I said, it's a 3rd book, so there's really not much that I can give away. I gave this book a 3 stars. I'm so happy to be done with the first half of the series. It did wrap up everything pretty nicely. We finally got some answers. I know that there's other stuff that's going on in here. There's also 3 more books to just the Mortal Instrument series, but I finally get to pick up the Infernal Devices, which I've been wanting to pick up for months. The only reason that I read the Mortal Instruments was so that I can know the progression of everything, so I could then read Infernal Devices. And then once I'm done with the Mortal Instruments, the last 3 books, I'm so excited to pick up like the Dark Artifices. I'm so excited to pick up the Last Hour series. You guys have no idea, but don't really have much to say. I'm just glad that the first part of the series is over. Speaking of the fact that I can now pick up the Infernal Devices series, I finally read, this is Clockwork Princess. This is the wrong book. Let me go grab the right book. This is the one I meant to grab, and I finally read Clockwork Angel. I did start the Infernal Devices series. I don't remember if I vlogged me reading this or not. I don't think I did. If you guys want to see a reading vlog of me reading the last 2 books, then let me know. That one will probably be spoiler though. I don't know what to talk about in a reading vlog if I can't tell you all what's happening. You know what I mean? I really enjoyed this book. So in this book, you are following this girl named Tessa Gray. She is 17, which this is like the one thing that made me not want to read Immortal Instruments. They're all like 15, barely 16 years old. And I was like, if you guys were 17, that would have been fine. But like, it's so impractical for like a 15, barely 16-year-old to be doing the stuff that they did. This, with them being 17, about 18 years old, it just felt so much more realistic, and like this stuff could actually happen to them. I mean, it's all fictional, of course, but it just felt better. But we're following this girl named Tessa. She lives in New York with her brother and her aunt, and one day her brother moves to London and is like, okay, I have business stuff here, I'm gonna go. A couple months later, her aunt dies, and she writes to her brother, hey, I have nothing here. And her brother's like, okay, well, come move to London and live with me. She's like, okay. So she hops on a boat. She gets there and she's like, okay, where's my brother? She's looking around for him so he could like pick her up and stuff, and she gets kidnapped by these 2 women named the Dark Sisters. The Dark Sisters, not good, no bueno, we don't like them. And they end up kidnapping her and like locking her up for a few months, trying to like train her for something. And she's like, I have no idea what's going on. While those months pass, you get little glimpses of what happens, but you're not being told really what she's training for. Like, that's kind of kept secret. It gets revealed a lot later into the book. But one day she gets rescued by this guy named Will Herondale, and we love Will. Will is like basically Rhysand, but also Jace from the Mortal Instruments. Like, it's just classic 2012 arrogant bad boy sarcasm kind of dude, you know what I mean? Will is a shadow hunter, and he ends up taking her to the Institute of London to kind of like save her, get her away from these Dark Sisters. And there she meets a whole bunch of other people that you end up loving. She meets Sophie, she meets Charlotte and Henry, Jessamine, and my favorite character of this entire series, you meet Jem. Jem is my favorite. But yeah, you follow the storyline of like they're trying to find Tessa's brother, and then you're also trying to figure out, okay, what is Tessa? What can she do? Why do people want her? And like, what is going on in London? And she's figuring out the Shadowhunter world. And like, reading this book, I could just tell that Cassandra Clare's writing got so much better. This book, just like reading it, was just so much better than reading the Mortal Instruments. It's just so much smoother than it was. Like, I did not hate the characters at all in this book. Like, I really actually liked them. So I was very pleased with that. I did get this book a 4.5 stars. I enjoyed it so much, and I really recommend the series. If you have not read it yet, definitely go into it. I'm reading the Mortal Instruments for the sake of I want to read the entire Shadowhunter world series stuff, but I really think that you could go into the Infernal Devices without reading any of those books, or just like knowing what happens in the first 3 books. Like, if you just look up the summaries of those, you could just carry along and read the Infernal Devices, which is something that I should have done, but I wanted to prove to myself that I could read the Mortal Instruments. Really enjoyed this book. I really loved it, and I really like the plot, and I'm really excited to get into the next one, which is Clockwork Prince. So yeah, and then we can get into one of my favorite books that I probably read this month, and that is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. Just look at this cover. Can we take a moment just for this cover? Beautiful. And the second one just got announced. Oh my gosh. We'll get into that in just a minute. This book follows Clementine Emmy Ryder. Emmy is like her little nickname. And she is your basic average girl who went to college, moved away, made a life of herself out from her hometown, who ends up coming back because something happens to her and she just wants to be around her family as she is recovering from this injury. She also, like, her job is to like ride horses. She got an injury from that. She comes back into town, and her best friend's like, oh my gosh, we have to go out because we haven't like really been able to hang out in like years or like months or something like that. But her and her best friend Teddy go out to this bar. They've known of it since they were like teenagers, gone, whatever. And there she sees Luke Brooks. Luke Brooks is actually a boy who grew up with her and her brothers. I believe that Emmy has 3. She has 3 brothers, I think, maybe 2, something like that. And Luke is her brother's best friend. So it is brother's best friend, kind of forbidden trope, which is one of my 2 favorite tropes of the entire world. Like, I literally love those tropes so much. Basically, she comes back into town and they have kind of a little bit of a connection. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was so good, and I also love the little snippets that we get of Teddy and Gus. I already know that Teddy and Gus's book is going to be like the best ones because just their connection, so good. Like literally it's unmatched. It's so good. But I really like this book. I really like Lila Sage's writing. I believe this is her debut book and I enjoyed it so much. I give this book a 4.5 stars. I love that Lila did not put any unnecessary fluff or unnecessary like parts of the book that we just did not need. I feel like this is like the perfect like cowboy ranch type of romance that if you want to get out of a slump, there you go. You have a great book. You have a great book with great connections, great family dynamics, great best friends, two great characters who don't get on your nerves. It was just so nice to read something that wasn't like 3 months went by and they had one interaction, and like no, you saw the progression of their relationship, you saw the progression of Emmy getting better, you saw the progression of like Luke and Emmy's brothers kind of talking about things and just getting to know the characters in such a short amount of time. Like this book isn't even 300 pages, but I felt like it was so much longer because of just the way that it was written. Like it was just so good. But the next book was announced and it does come out October 6th, and that is Swift and Saddled, and that is gonna be her other brother's romance with like this architect kind of girl. I don't remember the name. I'm super excited for Teddy and Gus's like book. I was really hoping that was gonna be the next one, but it's not. But you will see all these books on my shelf one day because they all have like this cover design and I just love it. That is done and dusted. One of the best books that I read this entire month. Definitely have been on my cowboy romance kick and I'm not sorry about it. And the next one is another Kindle read, another one by Monica Murphy, and that is Playing by the Rules. This is like another brother's best friend romance. This book follows Knox's little sister Blair. Knox is the first book, which is Playing for something, I don't remember. As I said, these books are not memorable. But you get Knox's little sister Blair and then also Knox's best friend Cam, which this book is a college romance, football romance type of, yeah. You get their romance. It's kind of forbidden. I thought it was really good. I didn't think that it was the best. I've definitely read better college forbidden romance type of books. Like the vibes are great. The vibes were there. I was having a good time reading it. It got me out of my almost reading slump and it just kept me going. It was entertaining, but again, it wasn't memorable. So I did give it 3 stars. I did like it, just wasn't my favorite. Like there's not much for me to say about this book. I want to say more, but like, yeah. I feel so bad. Like I feel like I'm bashing on this book and I promise you I'm not. Like I did like it, and if you want a good quick college football romance read, pick it up, but it's not something that I would rate more than 3 stars. You know, like if you want something to get you out of a book slump, yeah, pick it up. It's good. Alright, and the last 2 books I am going to pair together just because it makes sense in my brain to do so, and that is Once Upon a Broken Heart and The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. Just take a moment. Just take a moment for these books. Like number 1, take a moment to look at the cover of these books. They are both so freaking stunning, and just like the spines, look at that. I'm so excited to get the third one to like have the like the red in there. Oh my gosh, it's gonna look so good. So the first one is Once Upon a Broken Heart. In this book you are introduced to your plot, to your characters. Our 2 main characters is Evangeline Fox and Jax. Jax of Broken Hearts. Don't exactly remember what his full title is. The Prince of Hearts, who is Jax. Basically, Evangeline is like in love with this dude. Dude breaks her heart. She goes to the Prince of Hearts church and is like, please Jax, fix this or do something about it. And Jax is like, okay. And he turns everyone to stone. And Evangeline's like, oh my gosh, what did you do? This was so wrong. And he's like, well, you asked me to do something. And she's like, yeah, but not turn them to stone. And he's like, well, if you do this, then they'll not be turned to stone, but you will. And she's like, okay, and she does it. I think maybe like 2 months or like a couple weeks, some period of time goes by and she becomes not a stone anymore by this other fate, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm free. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna start moving all my life. She goes up to the Northern Kingdoms to kind of fall in love with this prince, or like to end up marrying this prince or something. So she goes there. By the way, she made a deal with the fate Jax, and so she kind of like owes him stuff. He hasn't come to like cash in or anything until she gets to the Northern Kingdoms to meet the prince, and Jax is there, and she's sitting there and like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen? And so that's where things start to really pick up. And once she gets up there and sees Jax again, you realize that there's something so much bigger going on, that he like starts to like talk to her a lot more. Things start happening. He kind of wants to like cash in like what she owes him basically for him like saving her. So you get to see that that storyline, and like with that there's so many other secrets, there's so many other things that you have to figure out as you're reading this book. I will say the first book is more of your like meeting the characters, setting up the plot for the second book and for like the rest of the story. So I did give this one 4 stars. I still really enjoyed it, but I definitely wanted more of like progression and action, but we don't really get that in the first one. But I will say just the ending of this book made me want to go into the second one so badly. So I did really enjoy it. The writing just felt so magical. This book felt like a little fairy tale almost, and it was just amazing to read. I really liked this one, and I literally just went straight into the Ballad of Never After, and like I actually annotated this one too. I really enjoyed this one. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. The quotes in here, the action that you get, just everything about this book was just so amazing. I got so much more character building, I got so many answers, but also a lot more questions as well, which I really liked because it just kept me interested. Like every chapter there was something new that I either had to figure out or I got answers to, and I just love that so incredibly much. I'm literally in so much pain as well just with the ending of this book, and I also can't figure out if I hate Jax or if I love him. Like Stephanie's just pulling me in like 3 different directions, okay? But I did really enjoy this book. I did give this one a 4.5 stars. As I said, I really think that you should pick up this entire series, and then the last one comes out in October and I'm like, I really need it now. But yeah, I really enjoyed this series, and I definitely think that you guys should pick this one up and be in pain with me and so many other people who have read this book, because you just need it, you know what I mean? So yeah, these are all the books I read this month. I definitely had such a good reading month. Like there were some books that I was like, okay, I'm glad this is over, and then multiple books where I was just so in love with all the characters, and just the plot and the story were just so great. I am very happy with this month. I mean, I have read a lot, but I read a lot of good books. And it doesn't really matter how many books you read, as long as you're enjoying what you're reading, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things. Comment down below what your favorite book that you read this month was. I think mine is either Done and Dusted or The Ballad of Never After. I just loved those books so much. But yeah, I will see you all in my next video. I love you, and peace out.